Kathamritam Tapta Jivanam Kavibhiriritam Kalmashapaham Sravanamangalam Srimadaatatam Bhuvi Grananti Ye Bhurida Jana. So, advice to the Brahmos. So, in the last class, we saw that Sri Ramakrishna is not willing to lean against the bolster. That what he was saying, that to lean against a bolster, you see, it is very difficult to give up vanity. You may discriminate, saying that the ego is nothing at all, but still it comes, nobody knows from where. A goat's legs jerk for a few moments, even after its head has been cut off. Or perhaps you are frightened in a dream, you shake off sleep and are wide awake, but still you feel your heart palpitating. Egotism is exactly like that. You may drive it away, but still it appears from somewhere. Then you look sullen and say, "What? I have not been shown proper respect." So as in the last class, we were indicating that in spirituality, the purity is the bonum and the sanam and the bonum of the entire spirituality. The purity is the sanam and the bonum of entire spirituality. And that purity, for that purity, we have to be extremely, as we were saying, vigilant. That constantly we have to be vigilant. That in English there is a proverb that the price of purity is vigilance. So here we see that Sri Ramakrishna, not only here, throughout his life there are so many instances that we find him extremely vigilant. That the ego can sprout out even unknowingly. Its ways are so subtle. And we have to be very, very vigilant. And that's what Sri Ramakrishna is showing through his entire life. That with this price of purity is vigilance. As we were indicating in the last class, that purity is not innocence. It is the maturity through the experiences of life. A small child is innocent, but it's not pure. As it grows, as it goes to the puberty, we find that so many tendencies which were hidden, that starts sprouting up. So that's not purity. It is the maturity through experiences. That in the life we go through some various experiences and we learn from them. We find that the certain situation in life results in certain negativities. And whether we are aware of that whether we are aware of this, that again when that circumstance comes, am I aware that in the last occasion, in such circumstances, certain negativities, certain samskaras found expression. So what's the best way to avoid? That we should try our best to avoid that circumstances, so that those tendencies may not lurk, they may not again spring back. So that's the thing which we find Sri Ramakrishna is instructing his disciples and his following in his own life. That he has learned from the experiences of, we have learned from the experiences of life so many things. Whether we are ready to be aware of it as per the circumstance and act accordingly, on that depends our purity. So now let's proceed to the next section. So seeing Sri Ramakrishna's vigilance, seeing Ramakrishna's sensitivity as per the ego is concerned, it is extremely sensitive. He is always vigilant that in no way the ego should be pampered. The Kedar, one of the disciples, he quotes from the Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's that's famous Sikshashtakam, that of all the writings of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, all has been destroyed. The only precious gem that remains is the Shikshashtakam, the 8 stanzas he has written for the believers, for the followers of the path of devotion, that what should be the way that they should follow. So that for that he has described in 8 stanzas. So in one of the stanzas, it's a very famous stanza, what it is mentioned, Trinadapi Sunichena Tarorivo Shahishnuna Amadina Manadena Kirtaniya Sada Harihi. So what are the characteristics of a devotee? That he should be very, very humble. Trinad api sunichena. That he should be even humbler, lowlier. He should feel himself to be lowlier even than his grass, even as a straw. Trina is a straw. So Trinad api sunichena. He is lowlier than the lowliest. He is even lowlier than a straw. So he should have that type of humility. Taroriva shahishnuna. That he should have the forbearance like a tree. That whatever we may be doing, we may be cutting its branches, we may be just plucking its flowers, it's harvesting its fruits, whatever we may do, the tree is never shows any sort of sense of vengeance or anger. It's always there, whatever we may do, it is there to serve us. It shows the highest state of forbearance. So that's why the tree is the a manifestation. The tree is a symbol of forbearance, sahishnuna, and amanina manadena. Amanina, that think yourself as the lowlier than the lowliest, and other persons, however lowly he may be, however deceitful he may be, there must be some good qualities even in such person. Try to see the good qualities even in the lowliest of the lowly and show respect to them. Manadena kirtaniya sadahari, and always go on chanting the name of the Lord, of God, of Hari. So this kirtaniya sadahari comes last. The first is all those qualities, that unless we inculcate those qualities in our life, simply taking the name of God won't help us. So be humble, have that quality of forbearance, and should see the good qualities in other and respect them. So these are the things which a devotee has to practice in his life. Seeing Sri Ramakrishna, that this tremendous sensitivity as per the ego is concerned, the Kedar is quoting this verse which is indicated here, that it is from the Shikshashtakam, that one of the stanzas, or one of the 8 stanzas of the Shikshashtakam, which has been composed by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So after that the master says, as for me, I consider myself as a speck of dust of the devotee's feet. So that's the thing that Sri Ramakrishna again and again through his life is showing. Much later we will find Swami Premananda in Belur Math when the novices are joining, and Swami Premananda was the manager of Belur Math, and a novice one day pointing to all this the spiritual giants as we see in the direct disciples of Sri Ramakrishna. What to speak of Sri Ramakrishna? Each and every disciple, direct disciple of Sri Ramakrishna, they were spiritual giants. So seeing their life, one of the novice commented that how great they are. Can we become great as them? Can we ever become as great as them? And then Premanandaji's reply was something wonderful. He told, you need not have to become somebody. Just become nobody, so that Sri Ramakrishna can work through you. That God is all compassionate. He's always waiting to come and take his seat on our heart. That is the place where he stays. He is the soul of our soul. But when he comes, he finds that we with our ego, pampered ego, have already filled the place. There is no place for him. So that's why he's saying very nicely, be humbler than the humblest. Be nobody, so that Sri Ramakrishna can sit on your heart and work through you. Just be an instrument in the hand of the divine. And to be an instrument, the only thing you have to do is to practice that humility. And that's what Sri Ramakrishna is saying, that as for me, I consider myself as a speck of dust of the devotee's feet. Vaidyanath arrived. He was a well-educated man, a lawyer of the High Court of Calcutta. With folded hands, he saluted the master and took his seat at one side. Surendra, to the master, he is one of my relatives. Master, yes, I see, he has a nice nature. Surendra, he has come here because he wants to ask you a question or two. So before he asks any question, Sri Ramakrishna himself starts addressing Surendra's devotee, through Vaidyanath. What he's saying, all that you see is the manifestation of God's power. No one can do anything without this power. But you must remember that there is not an equal manifestation of God's power in all things. Vidyasagar once asked me whether God endowed some with greater power than others. I said to him, if there are no greater and lesser manifestations of his power, then why have we taken the trouble to visit you? Have you grown two horns? So it stands to reason that God exists in all beings as the all-pervasive power. But the manifestations of his power are different in different beings. So that's the thing, that in Bengali, as Sri Ramakrishna's words, Tini Bibhu Rupe Sarvatra, that he's, as an essence, he's everywhere. Shaktir Tartam. But the manifestation of his power, that makes someone great. That's the thing that Sri Ramakrishna is indicating. This is the idea even we find in Bhagavad Gita in the 10th chapter, the Vibhuti Yoga. That God is saying that though he exists in the entire universe, he permeates the entire existence. He is permeating the entire existence, but his manifestation is palpable, is something very intense in certain aspects of the existence. And the 10th chapter vividly describes that in where we find his highest manifestation, the greatest manifestation. So that's the idea we find in the words of Sri Ramakrishna. That generally in those days the idea was that everyone has the same essence of the God. So there is no question of hierarchy. There is no question of high and low. All are same. So in this context, Sri Ramakrishna is saying, yes, the essence of the divine is in everyone, but its manifestation varies from a person to person. So that's why he is giving that example, that Vidyasagar, that why people respect Vidyasagar, for his knowledge, for the manifestation of the divine power in the form of knowledge, in the form of compassion. That's why he was revered. And that's the thing Sri Ramakrishna is indicating. Swami Vivekananda gives an example to understand this idea of manifestation of the divinity. That he is everywhere, but his manifestation is varied. It's not same in all. He says, suppose there is a light behind a screen. So now, if there's a small hole on the screen, just a small speck of that light can pass through it. The more the hole becomes bigger, the more the light starts brightening up the other side of the screen. So the light is the same. It is there existing behind the screen. There is no, as such, variance in its illuminosity. But as per the size of the hole, as per the size of the hole, the light permeates less or more. It manifests less if the hole is small. It manifests more if the hole is big. So that's the idea, that the Our ignorance is the covering. The more the ignorance falls off, the more the divine within us manifests. That's why we find that based on this idea of Sri Ramakrishna, Swami Vivekananda in his lecture is defining that divinity. What is spirituality? The spirituality is the manifestation of that. What is religion? What is spirituality? It is the manifestation of the divinity potentially hidden within every one of us. What is education? Education is the manifestation of perfection already within us. So it is all, the perfection is potentially there. How much it manifests, on that the question of variance come. And that's what Sri Ramakrishna just stated. And immediately after that, we will find Vaidyanath is asking a question. Sir, I have a doubt. People speak of free will. They say that a man can do either good or evil according to his will. Is it true? Are we really free to do whatever we like? So it's a very, very interesting question. That do we really have something called free will? That's what Vaidyanath is asking. The Master's answer is something very, very interesting. I think that will need some discussion. So first go to the Master's response to Vaidyanath's question. What he's saying? That at the very beginning he's saying there is nothing called free will. Everything depends on the will of God. The world is his play. He has created all these different things, great and small, strong and weak, good and bad, virtuous and vicious. This is all his Maya, his sport. You must have observed that all the trees in a garden are not of the same kind. As long as a man has not realized God, he thinks he is free. It is God himself who keeps this error in man. Otherwise, sin would have multiplied. So now sometimes it's really difficult to find a sense out of it. That he's saying that everything is on God's will, but he has, because of Maya, he thinks he is free. We think we are free, and God has intentionally kept that ignorance in us. And then what Sri Ramakrishna is saying, that it is God himself who keeps this error in man, this ignorance in man. Otherwise, sin would have multiplied. Now, how sin, if everything is God's will? The question is, if everything is God's will, if nothing is my will, and he has kept that error that because of our will we can decide our destiny. If this ignorance was not there, the sin would have multiplied, wrongdoings would have multiplied. So how we can understand? We can understand it with the help of some example. There are many ways to understand it. Suppose, let us take one example. That suppose there is an advertisement for a job. And there are some 100 seats for a professional course. So, or some, you forget about job, let us think about some professional course, some educational course in the university. So there are 100 seats and there are 1,000 applicants. We find it's everywhere. The applicants are more than the number of seats. Now, people know, all of them know, this 1,000 applicants, they all know that there are only 100 seats. And no one knows who is going to get. Everyone thinks that I will succeed. But we know only 100 of them will succeed. So all things themselves as capable and they try hard. Only in retrospect. After the exams, most probably someone sat for the exams 3 times, he has never qualified. In retrospect, he or she realizes that yes, I was not up to it. That was not for me. But can anyone understand it when they are going through it? No. All have that hope, most probably I will succeed. Only in retrospect, when we look back, then we understand that most probably I was not up to it, I was not fit for it. So what it speaks of, that all the applicants thought that we have that free will. If I try, I can succeed. That free will is there. It is my question of choice, I will. And only in retrospect they find that no, that apart from his own skills, there are so many other factors that have not coalesced together to really make his success possible. It's not only his own skills and intelligence, there are so many other factors that all has to coalesce together. So that has never happened. Most probably it was not for him. He understands it in retrospect. So this is the way of the world everywhere. Now where the question of sin comes. Now see, if at the very beginning those all 900 people knew that I am not going to get through, the 100 who are going to get through, they knew that we are going to get through, they study hard and they get through it, and 900, they just simply won't endeavor at all because they know that I am not going to go through. Then what happens? These people who were striving their most to get through it now has nothing to keep themselves engaged. Now what the dharma means? Dharayate iti dharma. That which helps us to integrate. Now what helps us to hold in this life? All these endeavors to succeed in life. You find that all the time we are endeavoring. However we may succeed, we are all endeavoring, and that keeps us engaged. If there were nothing to endeavor, with a free mind, as we say that free mind is a devil's workshop, all this type of criminal activities, sins would have increased. You may say, is it really a fact? Yes. Even in European countries, affluent countries, you will find in the 60s, in the 70s, without any reason, the youngs, they will suddenly go out, start simply breaking this glass cases of the shops, vandalizing the shops. Even a few years back in Germany it happened. It's an affluent society. Why? What's the reason? When they don't have sufficient work in an affluent society, they don't know that how to use the time fruitfully, and then there's a natural tendency to resort to all those sorts of negative activities. The mind cannot stay in one place. Unless we are giving something positive to it, it is bound to slide to some negativities, it is bound to some destruction, it is bound to. So it has to be kept engaged. And that's why we find that with all these hopes that I will succeed in these, that we are all endeavoring in life, that is keeping us engaged, and that keeps the morale of the entire society higher. Otherwise there would have been chaos, there would have been simply disturbance in the society. So from this, with this example, we can somehow understand that what Sri Ramakrishna is saying, that as long as man has not realized God, he thinks he is free. Actually nothing is free, everything is destined, but we don't know that. It's only in retrospect we understand that I thought so many things, that as in the that famous book, The Imitation of Christ, there is a very nice line that man proposes, God disposes. Man proposes so many things, but it is God who disposes. It's all fixed, but we don't know. In retrospect only we understand that the way of life was to be such. We never understood, only in retrospect. So if we would have understood, we would have never endeavored. Nothing would have been there to keep us integrated. All those endeavors, though it has not enabled us to succeed in life, at least they have kept us integrated in some noble endeavors. And that's why Sri Ramakrishna is saying that if that ignorance was not there, everyone thought that everything God has destined, there is nothing called free will. If people knew, then what would happen? He keeps this error in man, otherwise sin would have multiplied. And then what he's saying, man would not have been afraid of sin. and there would have been no punishment for it. Again, when you know that you won't succeed, then what will you do? That for our survival, if I know that by following the right means I cannot attain my sustenance, I will adopt to the wrong means. I still remember the interview of a person, of an illegal immigrant, came by boat. When I came to Australia in the beginning, in those years, early in the 2013, somewhere in some TV, I was seeing an interview of one such illegal immigrant. When he was asked that why you came illegally, and his reply was wonderful, and that actually made me think in a different way. What he told was very interesting. It was a lady. She told that if your house is on fire and you know that you cannot come out of the door because the fire has spread in such a way that the door is already engulfed by the fire, you cannot come out of the door. So naturally you will jump out of the window. What can you do? So when you know that your country is in fire, lot of disturbance, and there is no proper way to migrate to another country, but after all I have to save my life. So I cannot come out of the door, so I jump through the window. So that was her answer. So now you will understand that people won't be afraid of sin if they know that everything is fixed. I cannot attain something, and then they will resort. From the very beginning, they will resort to sinful way, and there cannot be any law enforced. There cannot be any punishment. That from that standpoint, you can find that what they will do if they know that it is not for him and he is resorting to some the way which is not lawful. After all, they have to. Everyone has the right to live a proper life. They will be resorting to all sorts of wrong things. So that's what you will find, that in this world, that though it may sometimes appear queer, there's a lot of this meaning in it. That's what Sri Ramakrishna is saying, that man would not have been afraid of sin, and there would have been no punishment for it. So, but do you know? So after saying this, then he's saying the attitude of one who has realized God. So, but do you know the attitude of one who has realized God? He feels, I am the machine, and thou, O Lord, art the operator. I am the house, and thou art the indweller. I am the chariot, and thou art the driver. I move as thou movest me. I speak as thou makest me speak. So again, these words you will find sometimes that without reflection it becomes very difficult to answer. The gospel is very, in simple words, he has spoken the truths. But some of the places we find that what he's saying, that it needs a bit reflection to understand it. So after saying that because of ignorance we think we have a free will, but the man of realization knows that he is just an instrument, God is working through him. But when he knows, for him to commit sin is not possible. Because as he is convinced of the fact that it is God alone who is working through each and every being, he has totally resigned to him. Whether that he has the proper means to support himself, or he has no such means to support himself. We will find that in our scriptures they speak of ajagara vritti, that a python, it never searches out its prey. It never goes out in search of its prey. It just lies in one place, and the prey comes by itself on its mouth. If the prey comes by itself on its mouth, it feeds itself, otherwise it simply will be lying. So that ajagar vritti is the example of a man of realization. He knows everything is God's will. So he has lost all the sense of endeavor. He just resigns himself. to the will of the God. And if God provides him, well and good. If he doesn't provide him, he is not unhappy. There's a nice story, even the gospel, Sri Ramakrishna is relating. It's a story of Rama, that what is the attitude of a real devotee. That whether anything good happens in his life or evil happens, he never tries to mend. He has developed a sense of total non-resistance because he has totally resigned to the divine. The story is very nice. What he says, that Rama and Lakshmana, just to relax, was approaching a reservoir, the Pampa Sarovar. And as they approached the reservoir and they were sitting on the bank of that reservoir, this Pampa Sarovar, now Rama just took out his quiver from his back. It has his weight. The quiver was on his shoulder, so he took out the quiver, and to keep it on the ground, the quiver won't simply stand on the ground, it will fall. It needs a support. So what Rama did, he picked up one of the arrows from the quiver and thrusted it on the ground so that he can keep the quiver, that the arrow can support the quiver and the quiver can just stand. So the moment he pierced the arrow on the ground to support the quiver, Lakshmana noticed that the ground has got wet with the blood. It has become reddish, red with blood. So Lakshmana pointed it out to Rama. Rama, just see, brothers, see, most probably some animal has been hurt. And immediately Rama removed the arrow and dug the ground to find a frog was there. A frog was there, and it got pierced by the Rama's arrow. Now Rama was really, he got very much disturbed seeing that. So he said that when a snake catches you, you croak so much, you make a huge noise. And when the arrow was piercing you, why were you silent? And this frog replied very nicely. He told, well, when the snake catches me, I make that croaking noise by saying that, "O Rama, save me. The snake has caught me. O Rama, save me. And now it is Rama's arrow which has pierced me. Whom shall I call? Whom shall I call?" That's why I was silent. It is you who are there to save me, and it is you who have... So that gives a wonderful idea that it is the God, according to His will, everything is happening. When you know that, the question of praying to be rescued, that doesn't come. He has simply resigned to the will of God. He is quite happy that whatever God does with me, I am happy. So that's the thing Sri Ramakrishna is indicating, that one who has realized God, he knows that I am the machine and thou, Lord, art the operator. I am the house and thou art the indweller. I am the chariot and thou art the driver. I move as thou movest me. I speak as thou makest me speak. So for such a person, so this dharma has two meanings. Dharayate iti dharma. The one who is yet to go to the realization, the ignorant person, for them dharma means dharayate, dharyate iti dharma. So all these rules, regulations, endeavors, do's, don'ts helps him to keep his individuality integrated. And for a man of realization, vishishyate iti dharma. What does vishishyate means? That dharma, as we know in Sanskrit, dharma means the characteristic. Just like the characteristic of water is to flow. The dharma of water is to flow. The dharma of fire is to give heat. Similarly, as a human being, no other creature has that capacity. We have that capacity to realize the divinity within. And when we do that vishishya, that's unique characteristic, what makes us? It makes us resign to the will of the divine. And then dharma becomes totally different. Now there is no endeavor on my part. I know everything is happening on the will of God, and then that perfect non-resistance gets established in our life. That's why in Karma Yoga, Swami Vivekananda starts with that idea that non-resistance is the highest ideal. But it is the highest ideal, the one who has realized the truth. It is for him. For others, they have to act. Action means that resistance, that wherever action never means non-resistance, that there is some situation on which I have to act. So there is no question that non-resistance cannot be the ideal of the one who has not realized. So till you have realized, this action has to go on. So that's what Sri Ramakrishna indicated. And as long as the action goes on, for what? The action helps us to keep our life integrated. Otherwise, we are bound to fall into all those the ways of life which are deceitful, sinful. So that's what Sri Ramakrishna is indicating through this, his conversation. So it's a very nice conversation. Once you reflect, you will find, apparently it may appear that what Sri Ramakrishna is saying doesn't make any sense, but now after reflection you will find what he's saying is something really wonderful. So let us just read before we proceed. That everything depends on the will of God. The world is his play. He has created all these different things, great and small, strong and weak, good and bad, virtuous and vicious. This is all his Maya, his sport. You must have observed that all the trees in a garden are not of the same kind. As long as a man has not realized God, he thinks he is free. It is God himself who keeps this error in man. Otherwise, sin would have multiplied. Man would not have been afraid of sin, and there would have been no punishment for it. But do you know the attitude of one who has realized God? He feels, I am the machine, and thou, O Lord, art the operator. I am the house, and thou art the indweller. I am the chariot, and thou art the driver. I move as thou movest. I speak as thou makest me speak. To Vaidyanath, it is not good to argue. Isn't that so? Vaidyanath, yes sir. The desire to argue disappears when a man attains wisdom. The master, out of his stock of a dozen English words, says thank you in the most charming way, and all laugh. Master to Vaidyanath, you will make spiritual progress. People don't trust a man when he speaks about God. Even if a great soul affirms that he has seen God, still the average person will not accept his words. He says to himself, if this man has really seen God, then let him show him to me. But can a man learn to feel a person's pulse in one day? He must go about with a physician for many days. Only then can he distinguish the different pulses. He must be in the company of those with whom the examination of the pulse has become a regular profession. Can anyone and everyone pick out a yarn of a particular count? If you are in that thread, you can distinguish in a moment of 40 count thread from a 41. So what it speaks actually, that when we are practicing spirituality, we will find that our mind and our ego is deceiving us in very subtle ways. So we think that by reading spiritual books, religious books, scriptures, we can proceed in this journey by our own. So here Sri Ramakrishna is indicating that there are so many subtle ways in which the mind and the ego is constantly deceiving us. Unless there is one to guide us through our way of spirituality, it is very difficult for one to proceed in this path by his own effort alone. So when one tries to evolve spiritually, the mind and the ego constantly goes on deceiving in the various subtle ways. So only an experienced guide, the one who is an experienced guide who has himself gone through those ordeals, can recognize them and warn the aspirant and guide them to the correct path. So even in the life of Sri Ramakrishna, we will find that when all these young disciples were coming to him, he was instructing. There are so many indications that they were getting the proper guidance at each and every step of their life. Just I can mention a few, that these words become meaningful when we find examples in the life of Sri Ramakrishna himself. He is speaking from his own life's experiences. That we will find that there are so many such instances that where you need a guide to always help you, warn you, guide you in the proper direction. That Latu Maharaj, we will give a few examples. One is this Latu Maharaj. He used to visit Sri Ramakrishna from Ram Babu's, another devotee of Sri Ramakrishna. He used to come from that Ram Babu's house to Dakshineshwar by walk. And Sri Ramakrishna one day asked him, "What's the path you follow?" And Latu Maharaj told us, these are the streets through which I come. And Sri Ramakrishna knew in one of those streets, by the side of one of the streets, there was a grog shop. He used to sell alcohol. Now Latu Maharaj came from a very humble background. His parents were farmers in Bihar. And he came to Calcutta as a young boy, as a servant of Ram, this Ram Datta. He was a guileless, simple boy. But Sri Ramakrishna had that idea that as he belongs to a family, very poor family who are hard-working, in such a family, after the day's work, to come back and have some alcohol is very common practice. So it's almost in their blood, the inclination to have alcohol. Now Latu is very pure boy. He has no such inclination. But it is as if in his blood, anytime an exposure to such type of environment, even unknowingly, may force Latu to get involved in all such things. So Sri Ramakrishna is warning, don't come through that street. Just see that how the Guru helps. Don't come through that street. And Latu Maharaj used to literally follow that advice, and he used to walk almost the double to follow a detour. He walked almost the double. And that's what we are saying, that every time you find that where to me it may appear there is no danger, he understands, he guides. So that's what Sri Ramakrishna is indicating. There's a need for this Guru to guide you through this path. And then Latu Maharaj had that idea. What's that idea? That only through meditation I can achieve the highest goal. And that was making him just a cocooned existence. And one day we see he's saying, the one whom you are on meditating, she, that mother, the mother of the universe, she is kneading the flour to make roti in Nahabat. Actually, Ramakrishna was indicating the Holy Mother sitting there. Go and help him. So this also is a spiritual practice. That not only meditation, to serve by seeing the divinity in all is also a spiritual practice. Balance your spiritual life. If you go for too much of meditation, that already started harming Latu Maharaj. He started losing weight. He was getting frail. Ramakrishna noticed that. So he felt that this balance is required. He has to balance his work with his meditation. So how nicely he's directing. Not only that, you will find that Jogen Maharaj, young Yogin, one day Sri Ramakrishna asked him to go and purchase some, this frying pan. And Yogen Maharaj brought one frying pan. As a young boy, he brought one frying pan which had some hole. And when he asked Yogen Maharaj that, why haven't you seen this? And Yogen Maharaj was surprised. The one who was in the shops selling that frying pan, he's a very holy man. How can he cheat me by giving such a thing? And then Sri Ramakrishna in Bengali is saying, Sadhu hobi to boka hobi kya? That being a holy man doesn't entail that you should be a foolish. Be very practical in your day-to-day life. Because the same mind with which you are observing the things of the world, by being fully attentive, with the same attentive mind you will be meditating. Don't be a fool just to believe a person because apparently he seems to be holy. See him, judge him, be attentive. So everywhere, the same Jogen Maharaj was very mild nature. He never intended to marry, but as his mother said that if you don't marry, I will commit suicide, he married. So that speaks of the soft nature. Sri Ramakrishna knew that this soft nature will be something hindrance for his spiritual growth. So when he heard that in a boat when Jogen Maharaj was coming to Dakshineshwar and someone was speaking ill of Ramakrishna, and Jogen Maharaj never reacted. He was quiet. When he came back to Dakshineshwar and he related this, thinking Ramakrishna will appreciate, Ramakrishna scolded him. He told, someone was doing your Guru Ninda. He was abusing your Guru. He was speaking ill of your Guru and you never reacted. And the same incident happened with some other devotee. His name was Niranjan, Swami Niranjanananda. So this Niranjananandaji Maharaj, when he was coming by boat one day, hearing that someone speaking ill of Ramakrishna, he was a very strong and stout person. He started shaking the boat. He said, I will drown the boat if you speak another single bad word against him. And all were scared. And when he returned, Sri Ramakrishna now again scolded him, told that what the boatman had done. He was an innocent person. He also would have drowned. Anger is something lowlier than the lowliest. Don't be angry. Just see the same instance for the same thing he is instructing. That Jogen Maharaj was with short-tempered. For him he is instructing something. For Niranjananandaji he was short-tempered. For him he is instructing something. For Jogen Maharaj, who was extremely mild, for him extremely just the opposite. So that speaks of there cannot be a single instruction for all. There are so many. When Naren wanted to be in meditation, Sri Ramakrishna is saying that I thought he will be like a huge banyan tree, totally changing his direction. This Naren was a very strong-willed person. Whatever he believed, he will make others believe. And Sri Ramakrishna is instructing him, Karor bhav noshto korte nahi. That don't, ever try to change a person's bhava. Bhava you can speak of as his way of relating to the divine. He may be a devotee. He likes the dualistic approach. Someone may be an Advaitic. So please don't disturb the attitude he has towards the divine. You shouldn't disturb that. And much later we will find this same Naren who has a tremendous power to transform the entire audience who was hearing the lecture. One day it so happened, the entire audience was as if mesmerized. And suddenly, Swami Vivekananda, that in future he became Swami Vivekananda, he stopped his lecture and went out. The others were disappointed. He says, Swamiji, the people were enthralled, they were all almost mesmerized. Why you suddenly stopped? He told, I found that I was almost changing their mind. And I felt that I don't have that, I shouldn't do that. Everyone should have their uniqueness. I shouldn't just simply influence them in such a way that the mind gets transformed. The same Naren, the young Naren, who was so strong-willed that he always wanted others to convert others to his own will. That Sri Ramakrishna just see how he is holding on to each of his devotees and guiding them so that they can be spiritually evolved and at the same time very Catholic, broad-minded. There are many such examples where we find Sri Ramakrishna by his instructions, because of his wisdom, because of his capability to as if scan the inner being of each and every devotee and see that his tendencies, his way of life. Like even we find that Swami Vijnanananda, he always used to maintain distance from the woman. And his impression was Ramakrishna has told all the devotees that they should keep distance from the woman. And one day he asked Swamiji that you came from the West and all these Western ladies are always with you. Isn't it Sri Ramakrishna said something contrary to it, that you should maintain distance? And then again, says Naren told, that's what he told you. What he told you, follow it to the letter. But you shouldn't think that's the instruction for all. He knows a person's capability and has instructed him accordingly. So you shouldn't think that what's the instruction given to you is meant for all. So that's the thing, that we find that Sri Ramakrishna, even in the gospel, is speaking that no one should practice the tantra. And one of his direct disciples was found to be practicing tantra, and Swamiji was shocked. He asked, how come you are practicing? Our master has always said not to practice tantra. And his answer was, he specifically told me to practice it. So thus we find that each and every one has a particular trait, and Sri Ramakrishna has instructed them accordingly, which may be quite different from what instruction to the others. And that's why that need for to be with the master to really progress in spiritual life is so important. And that's what he's saying. And what he's saying, you will make spiritual progress. People don't trust a man when he speaks about God. Even if a great soul affirms that he has seen God, still the average person will not accept his words. He says to himself, if this man has really seen God, then let him show him to me. And then he says this important thing, but can a man learn to feel a person's pulse in one day? He must go about with a physician for many days. Only then can he distinguish the different pulses. He must be in the company of those with whom the examination of the pulse has become a regular profession. Can anyone and everyone pick out a yarn of a particular count? If you are in that thread, you can distinguish in a moment a 40 count thread from a 41. So this subtlety, that's possible to go through the subtleties of spiritual life. That it is such a subtle path that any time I may be befooled by my own mind, by my ego. That's why the Guru has to take you by hand almost to take you to that realization. So that's what Sri Ramakrishna is indicating. The kirtan was about to begin. Some Vaishnavas were seated on one side with the mridangas and the cymbals. A drummer began to play on his instrument preparatory to the singing. The sweet and melodious sound of the mridanga filled the courtyard, calling to mind the ecstatic kirtan of Sri Gauranga. The master passed into a deep spiritual state. Now and then he looked at the drummer and said, "Ah, my hair is all standing on end." The singers asked what kind of song they should sing. The master said humbly, "Something about Gauranga, if you please." The kirtan began. They sang about the celestial beauty of Sri Gauranga. As the music came to a close, the master said, "Bhagavat Bhakta Bhagavan," and bowed low to the devotees seated on all sides. So this is a very wonderful triad. Bhagavat Bhakta Bhagavan. Bhagavan is the God, Bhakta is the devotee, and Bhagavat is the scripture. But these three forms a wonderful triad. That God, which seems to be so far, becomes near to the devotee when he reads the Leela, the divine play of the God, as has been related in the scripture, the Bhagavata. So this is a dynamic relationship of the God, of the devotee, and the scripture. This is what is the dynamic relationship, where God is not distant, but is realized and experienced through the heartfelt devotion of a devotee by contemplating on the God's Leela. He is contemplating on the God's Leela as described in the sacred text. So that's why when this singing is going on, so Sri Ramakrishna's spiritual bhava is enkindled just by the singing. So it's Bhagavata, and all the devotees are sitting there. So God is as if palpably realized, is palpably felt there, where his kirtan is going on. So that's why Sri Ramakrishna started saying that, Bhagavat Bhakta Bhagavan. Saying that, he bowed down to the devotees seated on all sides. So with this, we stop our discussion. This is almost the end of the chapter. So we will most probably start the new chapter again in the next class. So with this, we stop our discussion today. Thank you all. Namaskar.